Cześć! Welcome back to our Welcome Home channel. My name is Edyta and this is the first episode of our new series where we chat with foreigners living in Poland. Are you curious to know the first story? Let's go! Today, our guest is Greg from US who has been living in Katowice, Poland for the last 15 years already. Hi Greg, welcome to our channel.
Yeah, thank you.
It's really a pleasure to have you here and thank you for accepting our invitation.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here, yeah.
Okay, so I already said that you moved to Katowice, Poland in 2010, but it was not your first Polish experience, right? Tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, it's a little story different from most people, but I lived in Poland originally about 27 years ago in a small town in eastern Poland called Krosno. And it was for work, and I was there for just over a year, and then I moved to Warsaw, spent time in Warsaw, moved back to the US, finished my career, retired, and then came back to Poland.
Okay, so how was Poland back then, especially a small town like Krosno?
Night and day compared to what it's like now. It was, Krosno was, well, first of all, is still a smaller town and did not have any of what we would call Western amenities at that time. And my company actually classified it as a hardship assignment. But I survived. But the changes I've seen, even when I moved from Krosno to Warsaw, the changes then and now are incredible.
Okay, and also for Katowice, this is completely different city now and 15 years ago, right?
Absolutely.
So how would you describe those changes?
Oh, well, one thing I will say is Katowice is always changing. Everything is always for the better, always an improvement. I remember Katowice when it had the old train station. Now, I know the people out there aren't going to understand what that means, but you're laughing, you know what that means. I remember the Rynek, the market square, yes. The old one. Huge projects, huge changes that affect everybody's quality of life, just improving it. And every year, one thing I love about living here, not just here in Poland, but here in Katowice, is all of the improvements. Everything just gets better and better and better.
I agree, but do you miss something from old Katowice?
Well, it was a little bit quieter in the center, but I do enjoy the, I'll say, hustle and bustle of a city. Now it's Christmas time, we have the Christmas market, I walk my dog in the evening, I live right in the center. It's really nice for me to see all the people enjoying the Christmas market, but during the summer, the tourists and people that coming to visit that we didn't have 15 years ago.
Or even maybe 5 years ago.
True.
Yeah, it changes on Christmas market. I see a lot of foreigners right now. I can hear all of languages from all around the world. And do you think that living in city center is convenient in Katowice?
Well, for me and for my lifestyle, it's very convenient. One thing, as an American, we're very car-oriented. And cars are very important for getting around, unless you live in like New York City. And one thing I always wanted to do was live in a city where I didn't need a car, live in a downtown. So I have a car, but I don't need it. Everything I want to do, need to do, shopping places I want to go, movie theaters, restaurants, it's all right in walking distance.
Okay.
Yeah.
And speaking on Americans, what do they usually think about Poland and Poles? Any stereotypes?
Well, this summer, one of my sisters came to visit. Now, this was her third visit here, and she visited me the first time when I lived in Warsaw. and she was here about 8 years ago, 7 years ago. But she brought her daughter, my niece. And when my niece was here the first time, she was probably 10 years old. She doesn't really remember it. So when she told her friends she was coming to visit, I'm sorry, but her friends were like, why Poland? They just thought about grandmas and onions and garlic. And my niece thoroughly enjoyed herself, posted wonderful pictures and videos of our visits to Krakow, around Katowice, and she was even showing me comments she was getting from her American friends that, like, wow, that's Poland, I want to visit. I think the perception as people come visit, take the stories back, share it with friends is changing. But a lot of Americans don't have, I would say, an updated impression of Poland.
And what would you consider the biggest surprise for them?
In terms of a surprise, they were surprised at how often people pay with their phone or their watch, because it still hasn't caught on as much in the US. And I will say I agree, because the US was far behind Europe and maybe the rest of the world in getting credit cards with chips in them. It was just about 10 years ago, I think, that the US got credit cards with chips, and we had had them. Well, I think my first credit card here had a chip in it.
Yeah. In terms of technology, I have to admit that we are super well developed.
Yes, yes,
so
absolutely.
Cashless payments, parcel lockers,
Yes.
e-commerce, this is something that's, I think you will agree with me, right?
I will,
super
absolutely,
convenient.
yeah.
And how would you describe the biggest differences in mentality between Poles and Americans?
I really don't like to use the word stereotype. So I will say generally. Now, I've said that, and I will also say things are changing. But I can say generally, Polish people complain a little more than your average American.
A little? You want to be really polite,
I'm trying
to
be polite. So if I were to ask one of my American friends how they are, they'd say fine. Now, if they're having a really bad day, they would say, I'm fine, but a little busy, or blah, blah, blah. But you ask a Polish person how they're doing, and they'll tell you about their back and their knee and the ex-husband, the weather, and the ex-husband, the daughter who didn't do her homework. Yeah.
And what about you? Did that impact you? I mean, your Polish experience? Did you change in terms of your mentality maybe and reaction?
Well, I've learned with certain people, a few of my neighbors, and I mentioned I have a dog, and I see a lot of the same people walking their dogs the same time I walk mine. I stop saying, how are you? And I just say hello.
Not to listen to all the complaints, right?
But that's probably one of the biggest things, I would say.
And do you think it's easy to make friends with Poles?
You know, I think that's something that's changed also. I think originally, and I say originally when I lived here the first time, it was very difficult. My friends were mostly expats. Now I would say that even though I still have some expat friends, I have a lot of Polish friends. So I think that's changed a lot.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
And Greg, do you speak Polish?
I do, but I will be the first to admit it should be better than it is. But I absolutely get by fine. Most of the restaurants I go to, the shops where I do my shopping, they know I'm not Polish. I guess I have an accent when I speak Polish, but I always try to make myself understood. If I don't know the word or don't remember the word, I use another word to describe it. For example, I wanted to buy some tomatoes, and this was years ago when I was living in Krosno, and it was a small shop because that's all they had. And you had to ask for the vegetables. It wasn't self-service like at a Auchan or Tesco. And I wanted ripe tomatoes, but I didn't know the word ripe. So I said in Polish, very red. And she handed me 3 ripe tomatoes, and so it worked.
So it's just about being clever enough to handle.
Yeah, but I manage. If I need to go to the doctor, sometimes I take a friend with me, but maybe 75, 80%, 90% of the time, I don't need help with that.
And do you think it's possible to live in Poland on a long term without speaking Polish?
Without speaking any Polish? I would not recommend that from the standpoint that I think one is just not polite to be a guest in a country and not even try to speak some language. I have what's called a karta pobytu, and so it means I can stay in Poland, and I consider myself a guest. And so I try to act that way. I work on my Polish every week, maybe not every day, but every week. And some of my friends will comment from time to time, oh, your Polish is better. So they hear it, and maybe because I remember some new vocabulary. But I think in a large city like Warsaw, someone probably could. Katowice is a big city, but I think you should learn the local language.
And the experience is whole different.
Exactly.
It's just like you can immerse in the culture.
Exactly.
Yeah. You teach English. Actually, this is how we met. And what would you say about English proficiency in Poland? Did it improve over time?
That's a really good question. And the answer is yes. Emphatically yes. I remember going to convenience stores or a little restaurant and nobody spoke English. Now, every restaurant, every coffee shop, they speak English. Even a convenience store, clerk might say, my English is not very good, but she says it or he says it perfectly. And I can speak enough Polish to get by, but I think, again, I'll use this expression, night and day. Now I'm older, and I don't expect older people to speak English, but you will notice the younger people, are, if not fluent, very good in English.
Okay, and are we good students? Or we learn mostly from TV?
You're asking me as a teacher or as somebody who is listening to English?
Both.
Generally, all of my students are enthusiastic students and want to learn. How about if I answer it that way?
Okay. Yeah, I'm satisfied with that reply. And you have been living in Poland for 15 years. You you mentioned that you have karta pobytu. So for sure you had to deal with a lot of legal issues too. How would you describe everyday life in Poland? I mean, bureaucracy, commuting, dealing with everyday stuff. Is it easy?
Getting my original karta pobytu, which I've since renewed a couple times, was not easy. Nobody in the government offices spoke English. I definitely needed somebody to go with me. It was a very cumbersome, difficult process. Each renewal got easier. My last renewal was almost a breeze, but I would always take a Polish speaker with me because there can be surprises when dealing with red tape and bureaucracy. I don't commute as much as I used to. When I was teaching at one of the local universities, I did commute. My first lesson was early in the morning. I had some morning rush hour, and it wasn't too bad, but I'm thinking about this time of year because it's Christmas, and a few days ago, I was in Uber and saw the line of cars to the mall, and I was happy I was not in that. But I think in terms of commuting, a lot of my students and friends have switched from just driving their individual car to public transportation, or a couple of my students are taking the shared bicycle program.
But both in Katowice are really convenient because
Yes.
the public transport and the city bike network, they're really well developed. So it's in Katowice is fairly easy.
Katowice is
not
very
to have
easy.
car.
No,
Yeah.
but that's changed so much. When I moved here, I'm a bicyclist. I brought my bikes from the US. There were no bike paths. And now there's a great network of bike paths. You can go this direction, that direction, that direction, this park, that park. It's wonderful.
Okay, so is still something in Poland that annoys you? Or you cannot get used to this?
Well, many years ago when I was living in Warsaw, one of my friends was also an expat. And we had a coping mechanism called TIP. TIP is TIP. This is Poland.
Okay.
And we used it often to just like laugh off a difficulty that we might have. But I will say I haven't used it in years.
Good to hear. Yeah. We meet here and we record in the Christmas time. So I need to ask you about your favorite Polish traditions. They don't have to be the Christmas ones, but the ones that you like the most, you find really unusual, maybe.
Well, Vigilia, which is Christmas Eve, I love the food, the menu. It's wonderful. Other holidays I really enjoy now. Just November 1st, All Saints Day. It's not a big holiday in the US, but I've learned to really appreciate it and enjoy the sentiment, going to the cemetery, seeing the flowers at night, seeing the candles lit up, and then watching my friends remember family. And it's not a sad occasion. It's quite nice when people are telling joyous stories.
Yeah, it's particular.
Yeah.
It's really ours. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have to agree.
But Christmas, the food.
And do you have your favorite season?
I generally enjoy the summertime. I can walk my dog longer. The outdoor cafes are open. I can have a leisurely lunch, a cold beer on a hot day. Yeah, I would have to say summer for me.
Do you have your favorite places to spend summertime outside?
I have a lot of favorite places. I can easily kill a lot of time outside, but we have, in addition to just like some cafes in the center, there are a couple parks I really truly enjoy. Park Śląski, which is just an incredible, beautiful park, and Mahoviec Park. They're both wonderful. I enjoy biking there or taking my dog and walking there, having lunch. They're wonderful places.
Okay, and imagine that there is someone that is going to visit Poland for the first time ever. If you were to recommend them something, places to start with, what would be on your must-see list?
Oh, how long are they here for?
I don't know. Let's start from 1 week.
Krakow is just a beautiful town. I think it's one of my favorite places in the world. I have been to close to 40 countries. Poland's not the only country I've lived in. I've visited many, many cities, but I would definitely recommend a few days in Krakow. I think Warsaw would be great. Old Town is beautiful. I think also it would give people impression of cosmopolitan environment. If someone has the time, I would also recommend the mountains. Zakopane, beautiful in the mountains. Again, I think a contrast to what people would just not expect.
And do you still have something on your personal bucket list to visit in Poland?
Well, I have been fortunate and have visited many parts of Poland. But there is a national park to the east, and the name escapes me, the prehistoric park.
Białowieski,
Thank
Białowieża.
you, thank you. So that's on my list.
Yeah,
I'd love to go
highly
there.
recommended. Yeah. Do you have any tips for foreigners planning maybe to move to Poland? What would you recommend or say them?
Oh, moving to Poland. Well, do a little bit of homework in terms of Polish customs and habits. Something that I am used to and took a while to get used to, the Polish habit of handshaking. And when I lived here the first time and was in the office, every morning it was you went around and shook everybody's hand, and you saw them every day, and it wasn't like I haven't seen you for a long time. So Polish people like to shake hands. Nothing wrong with that. But Polish people are very hospitable. Someone should expect an invitation. I would suggest accepting it and then expect that there would be plenty of food, especially fabulous cakes and desserts, and enjoy them.
Okay, thank you, Greg. That was a pleasure, really, and you have great experience, so you can be a great source of knowledge for everyone planning to come to Poland on the long term or maybe just visit. Is there anything that you would like to add, maybe?
Well, I would just say, really, anyone interested in visiting Poland, coming to Poland, I wholeheartedly recommend it.
Thank you.
Okay,
That was a
okay.
pleasure.
Thank you. It was great to be here today.